Whether we are there or not, ITSP Magazine still gets the best stories. Plenty of conferences and events spark our curiosity and allow us to start conversations with some of the world's brightest minds. In person or virtually, Sean Martin and Marco Ciappelli go on location and sit down with them at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Together, we discover what the synergy of these three elements means for the future of humanity. Coro, the leading cybersecurity platform purpose-built for small and medium-sized enterprises, protects against malware, ransomware, phishing, data leakage, network threats, insider threats, and email threats across devices, users, networks, and cloud applications. Learn more at coro.net.
Marco.
Sean.
I need to have a word with you.
What?
Well, I've been looking at your expense reports.
Oi.
I don't know that you're...
I'm not even putting everything.
I know. I don't know that you're prioritizing things quite exactly as we should for the business.
That's right. I'm trying to get minimalist, but it's very hard.
Yeah, well, throwing away a couple of shirts is not the same as running a secure, tight security program.
People come to me and say, you need this, you need this, you need that, so I just think that I need it. But do I really need it?
The shiny new thing, right? Do you need both of those services that do the exact same thing? I don't know.
I need help.
You need help.
I need help.
Well, that's I think that's a common theme here at the show. We're at Infosecurity Europe in London at the Excel, and a lot of conversations, even some activities evidently overnight, where perhaps prioritized budgets weren't placed properly, or who knows? I don't know. I'm actually going to spend some time today digging into that with some folks, the whole NHS thing. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're going to talk about budgeting and spending and prioritizing and getting the most bang for the buck and running a meaningful program and knowing that you're doing so, not just blindly doing that. And we have two guests. We have Emma Philpott and Don Gibson on. They're both speakers at the event. Thank you both for joining us.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, good stuff. We're sitting here looking over the Thames and a venue that's being replaced at the moment. So somebody decided to tear something down and build something new, and another building being torn down, perhaps. I don't know. Looks like an old relic there, but I think there might be an analogy there, right? We build stuff, we build programs, we add to the programs, new products come, we add those products and services, we need to add teams to run all that stuff, and we just continue to layer on, and we're told that layered defense is good, right? So it's a best practice in many cases, and then we're stuck with stuff. We're stuck with old legacy technology and new technology, and we're both in the running the business and protecting the business, and lots to consider there, because you don't just flip a switch and change from old to new. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. I want to hear from both of you, who you are, what you're up to first, and then we'll get into the topic. Emma, you first, please.
Hi, I'm Emma Philpott. So I'm the CEO of IASME, and IASME, we're best known for delivering the Cyber Essentials program for the government. So that's basic technical controls that it turns out are really, really important to keeping you secure. We do various other things, and we focus on trying to make things accessible and inclusive.
Perfect.
Don.
My name is Don. I'm the CISO of Kinley, which is a global audiovisual company. So when they say the defendants appeared via video link, that's us, to give you an idea. We're proud holders of Cyber Essentials Plus, as we supply HMGov, and I've been brought in at a time of large change and transformation within the company.
Nice one. I saw a story there the other day, and I'm from New York, and it was a story, I think it was actually a story in California, but where a defendant appeared on camera.
Driving.
Driving, yes.
Oh, yes. There's nought queerer than folk.
So we as humans, we don't always make the best decisions, right? Even when we know what the rules and guidelines are. So let's talk about. Let's touch briefly on the session you're going to have a little later. Kind of the gist of it. There's a few of you joining. How did the panel come together, and what was the purpose of it?
So I think the panel was invited by the organisers to try and cover, the most of the aspects that would be discussed and are interesting. And we had a few meetings beforehand, and really, really great. It's part of the joy of being involved in these kind of things, is you meet such, great, interesting people, and of course everyone, because they have such different backgrounds, have a different take on the subject. So it's going to be a good panel.
Yes.
What are the most important perspective, in your opinion? I mean, having different perspective is important in everything we look at. Mm-hmm. Coming at the table to look at from different angles about this topic, which it's about cybersecurity right now, but it could be applied to pretty much everything. Budgeting, as we were making fun at the beginning with Sean. So in this case, what kind of experts should be in the same room to really cover as much as you can?
So, there's a lot of different perspectives, which, of course, when I first came into the sector, I just have my view, and I don't realise it's actually quite complicated. So there's the little tiny companies who don't have much technical understanding. How do they achieve security? There are the medium-sized companies who are starting to, hire security professionals, but maybe have a budget problem. There are the large organisations that often have massive digital debt. They've given smartphones to everybody and then not replaced them for many, many years. And to ask them to do that when they have thousands and thousands of them is a very big investment, because they haven't been investing as they go along. And then there's things like charities who, people give donations for the charity to use it for their main purpose, not for them to spend it on cybersecurity. So what do? So it's very much more complicated than you would first think as an outsider.
And the people involved with that, for me, are both technologists, cybersecurity leaders, but then also people beyond that. So people at C-level who are actually making the decisions. We need to be able to enable them to make the right decision, to tell the right story to them, so they are able to lead. It's what they're supposed to be doing. So therefore, these are the scenarios. This is what we're looking at. Whether it's the risk profile, whether it's the fiscal risk profile, whether it's the technical risk, everything all together tells the story, and then you can make an informed decision.
And it is made harder by obviously in every sector, some of the sales. You get some great salesmen or women coming along and saying, my gadget is really expensive, but it will solve all your problems. And of course, nothing solves all your problems. So if you don't have an understanding of cybersecurity, trying to understand who is selling snake oil or not is really hard.
Yeah.
So I think we're an industry driven by technology, right? Mm-hmm. And taking that to the next step, we're an industry that has a set of experts that understand things that others don't, and they kind of keep a lot of secrets, right? The researchers and the hackers, good hackers that build these products, right? And so there's already a separation between what the technologies do and how that supports the business. And I guess what I'm trying to lead to is that security teams then are trying to decipher how the technologies protect what I'm building for my business to make it run. And my sense is that we're not, and we talk about the CISO having a difficult time speaking to the board, right, to make that translation, that jump. But when we're looking at budgeting, right, are we set up as a function to properly budget? I mean, we can probably talk about risk, we can talk about controls, we can talk about response. Can we talk about budget? Are we set up for that?
I think we have to, especially if you're running should we say a more advanced risk profile such as the FAIR method, right, that gives you a percentage of how it will actually impact, at which point you're able to give a fiscal number against it, at which point you can start having very frank conversations. And it's back to the very, very beginning basics of cybersecurity, of if something costs $100,000 to fix, and the tool to fix it costs $10,000, that's a really easy conversation to have. However, if it's the other way around, that doesn't make much sense, so therefore you hold that as a risk. Go, I'm not going to fix that, it's not cost effective right now.
But if I can, the customers have to take some responsibility. So it's very easy for a company to have to make risk decisions based on budget. You know, it's always like kind of, I mean, I've run a small company and I know that you do what you have to get through that month. And it usually doesn't involve the extra stuff. So deciding a risk appetite as a company is one thing, but as a customer, you need to impose some things on your suppliers, I think. Because otherwise, unless it is, you know, make or break for the contract, sometimes they're not going to invest in things. They'll hope for the best. So it's quite a big responsibility as a customer as well.
I think from a psychological perspective, it's that attitude that if I can't get all I need, then I'm not going to get anything. And I think that's the wrong approach. And obviously, this retaining the knowledge, and I call it the shaman mentality. Like, I got the power and I'll tell you, but I'm not going to tell you everything so I can keep the power. It's not beneficial for society and the business in general. So there needs some guidelines and to know that, you know, a list, get the basic, and then go on. So how do you build a program like that?
Well, so we've been involved in Cyber Essentials, which is the basic. It is literally meant to be the basics. You should be doing these, if nothing else. But we hear, particularly from larger organizations, that it is really difficult. You know, one multinational law firm was telling me, I don't know, about a month ago, that it is the most difficult certification internationally that they get, but they think it's a very high level. So it kind of shows that it's very easy to spend a lot of money and get a whizzy, flashy thing, but actually putting security in your company, doing the basics, is quite difficult. And so that's why people would rather maybe spend a bit more money and not have to involve the rest of the company.
I think that's it, because you're talking about culture and how if people are used to things happening the way they happen, and then you have to change what they're used to because you need to change the culture, then there can be either dragging feet or friction or engineers going, oh, we can't do our job anymore, or whatever else, when it's actually something has changed in their world and they don't like it, which is sometimes it's just a tough conversation. You've just got to sit there and go, like it or lump it.
Yeah.
That's it. Other times it's a case of education and leading them through, and I say that good cyber leaders need to be enablers. We need to enable the business. We can't be the people sitting there saying no. Therefore, if I'm saying no, you really should listen to me because I don't like saying it, but B, I tend to give an alternative. So you want to do X, right? You can't just sign stuff off to Box or move it or whatever else. We're able to set up this in SharePoint, an external SharePoint site, and you can ship it out that way.
Right.
And so I'm cutting down the shadow IT, I'm cutting down the potential data leakage, and I'm increasing the control over it. Is it as nice as clicking on a whizzy app and doing what they used to do? No, but I don't care.
Yep.
So at the times it's like I'm trying to hold their hand, I'm trying to lead them through, but sometimes you just got to say no. You've got to be the tough parent.
And so one thing that's coming to mind is, I think one of the points in your session is around staffing versus technology, and I don't know, maybe Don, your perspective on this, and then of course yours as well, Emma, but do we set, who sets the different parts of the budget, right? Because we're given so much for people, we're given so much for CapEx, we're given so much for OpEx, and you have to kind of work with within some of those boundaries. And so if you say I need technology but I don't have enough budget for technology, or I need more people but all my budget's in technology, or you're hoping that technology solves it so you don't have to worry about the people management aspect of things, who sets that big picture and how does that impact what you do as a CISO?
for me, it's about starting the conversation at the top level, at the board level, and leading it on a risk basis. And at which point you start going, right, this is the picture we're faced, this is the landscape, this is what we see the future to be. Now let's work backwards. You're giving me this. That will get X. Now, do I have the potential to use whatever technology I have a little bit better and free up some of the extra cap there that I could move across to staff to either enable my staff a bit better, give them more training, which would help retain them so we don't have the churn, which is extra cost, and et cetera, and you start leading that conversation through. So there's lots of little bits plugging together that actually make a correct answer for it. For me, the big ones are make sure the board are fully aware of everything and the impact of their decisions. Staff need to be properly looked after, both fiscally, mentally, training, etc. Stop that churn, because it's far more costly to get people in and let people go than it is to keep them and look after them properly. And then make sure your technology is working properly. Get the proper return on investment on that. Make sure I'm yet to be in a company where everything that you are entitled to is turned on and working.
I have a question. So we live in this world, we said everything is blinking, everything is new. We are in an event. We were at RSA conference not too long ago, and we actually had a conversation about a monster that is feeding itself to survive, and so here I'm thinking, on one side you're constantly told that your technology is old. Even your smartphone, it's old in a year and you should get a new one, and where do you stop to the point okay, what I got is good enough? So I'm thinking, in the budgeting, while you're bombarded by all of this, what's the lifespan, let's say, on the technology that you have? Where do you stop the investment in people to use that technology, because you have to actually update that technology? And I have no idea what the answer is. So is there an answer?
So obviously it usually depends on how long the software, particularly, and some of the hardware, is supported. And so we're in the hands of the vendors, and some of them are better than others. Some of them are trying to support more, which is a really great thing to do. Some of them, the support time is getting less and less. And not just that, the notice. They suddenly say, we're going to stop supporting these. And it gives hardly any notice, which means it's very, very difficult, particularly for larger organizations, to plan in the replacement. A lot of people talk to us about how we want to be more friendly to the climate and stop throwing things away. It's really hard. If things are not being updated, how to keep them, be more friendly to the environment and stay secure is a really difficult thing.
I completely agree. It's one of the things we're going to be talking about is one of my expectations, especially towards my architects, is to keep a very close eye on the product managers, have a good relationship with our vendors, so we actually understand what's coming over the horizon, what new bits are coming, what will we have access to, but also when's something going to go end of life, when's it going to go end of support, when do I start needing to lead the conversation with my CTO or CIO and go, we've got this coming in the next 18 months, 36 months, whatever.
You're talking about your general ops systems. You're talking about your mail and your HR and your EDR and your
operating systems,
ERP,
everything.
Yeah.
All software,
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's under your
on
purview.
the hardware.
That's under your purview.
I make sure it is.
Yeah.
I don't care if someone else is looking after it. I still want to know what's happening.
One of the most important things.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to know whether your software is supported or not. It's one of the biggest questions we get, because you have to say that, yes, my operating systems are in support. And for little micro companies, the two-person shop, they ring up, they don't even know what kind of computer. We have to sort of get to does it have an apple on the cover or not?
Right.
How do they know if their operating system is in support? It's really hard to find. So we've got a web page now with all the links that we can find to try and help people find out if the operating system they're using is in support. They don't make it easy, and that's a big barrier to security.
And I was actually going to go there because I like to talk about small business. I come from a family of, mom and pop shop, and everything is relative. Like you run that big company and you have enormous expenses. But again, even if you're a mom and pop shop or a small office, a small studio, even that seems to be a small amount of computer and software that you have, but compared to the business, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And so one of our biggest aims, we've been doing Cyber Essentials now for 10 years, and our real aim was to make it accessible to the smallest of companies, one-person companies. Obviously, we try and make it as low cost as possible, but and it is easier the smaller you are to implement the controls.
Right.
You can do it for free as long as your software is up to date. That's
right.
the kind of key. It's just about going in and changing settings. But I say that, my mum, have no idea. So we keep trying to publish guidance how to put in the Cyber Essentials controls for free. Every time we publish it, we kind of we get sole traders to have a look at it, and always we need to make it easier. We need to make it easier, and that's so we're trying. But the vendors, the people who design computers and software, they need to help us. They need to try and make it secure out of the box.
With that, you also can't be you can't diagnose to use certain vendors.
No.
So, for example, for mum and pop shops, etc., as much as I dislike using them in big companies, Google got everything out of the box right there. You get a Chromebook, you have everything backed up to the cloud. It's got antivirus. It lets you know. It's got a password manager in there. Lets you know about threats to passwords and accounts. And all of a sudden, well, hold on, that's a really quick, easy thing that you could say to people.
Yeah.
However, you can't sit there saying go to Google.
Right.
That ain't going to work.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
But it's not just how do I put the security in place. If you have an incident, if you get ransomware or something, where do you go? As a sole trader, how do you find someone who knows what they're talking about? There's so much snake oil out there. It's all really hard, but we as IASME trying to put free guidance online so you can put the controls in place for free. If you don't need a certificate, you don't have to pay any money. So but it's still hard.
So let's talk a bit about the community. I'm fortunate enough to join some CISOs on a weekly basis, and Chatham House Rules get to hear of some interesting stories.
Bet you do.
Yes, and but the beauty that I find in that is the community aspect, where they're able to openly and candidly share with each other, I'm about to embark on this project, I've had this incident, I'm struggling to get budgets, I'm struggling to keep staff, find whatever the situation is. And they come together, and they don't always have the answer because one might be a bank, another one might be a water district, right? So different situations. But generally, they share the same objective, which is, to your point earlier, which is to enable the organization to succeed in a safe and secure fashion. So they share their ideas and their thoughts. Your perspective on the role and value of community, I suspect you're a part of some of them as well. And then to you, Emma, your view on that, and how I think there's value in that for some of the smaller organizations, while other chambers of commerce or things like that they can leverage. So
yes, I am a member of a number of I call them cabals, and they are invaluable. You'll quite often see a few of the same faces in the different groups, but there's always a take. There's always some knowledge. It's always freely shared. There's always some advice given freely. So there's that on the knowledge base. There's also the support aspect of it. I was in a particularly nasty incident, and a previous CISO that I'd not worked with for maybe 4 years called me up and went, "If you need anything, my team's yours." and I must admit, I nearly cried at that. It was so wonderful. So there's that, and with that, something else I talk about is mental health support, especially for CISOs, or if your team is impacted by high impact events and the like, how to look after them, and this also appears in the groups where we actually look after each other, which is awesome, and that's male and female. We're obviously massively inclusive. We want to have underrepresented people in our wonderful industry, but the majority right now are middle-aged white men, and middle-aged white men tend to sweep things under the rug and don't talk about it. And having groups like this really make a big impact towards that. So, yeah.
We have something a little bit similar in that, so we license the assessments to a network of certification bodies. Most of them are micro or small companies, lots of one-man bands, cybersecurity experts all over the country. We've got about 350 of them. And we have face-to-face events. We have 7 events a year, and when they do training, they're face-to-face. They meet each other, and they build these really great relationships. So, I mean, on the face of it, they're competitors, but actually they support each other. And because they're so small, one of them will get a big job that is too big for them, and they'll bring all the others into it. So you start seeing them working together. But our certification bodies are amazing. They really are the most entrepreneurial and expert people that some of the people I've met.
I think sharing information has been one of the things that, I guess, Sean, that we heard a lot in the past year and a half, has been one of the non-technological solution to the main cybersecurity problem, because you may be going against what you think about a competitive advantage, but in reality it will be a societal advantage that would really, really benefit.
But it is really embarrassing if you have an incident. I mean, we had an incident, I don't know, about 8 years ago or something, and it's awful. It's awful when you're the team going through it. And then on social media, you always get everyone weighing in, blaming you, spreading rumors, spreading gossip, and just sometimes someone reaching out and saying, I hope you're okay, means everything. But it's embarrassing to admit. And, as a CEO as well, it's important to lead by example in terms of embarrassment, because, I've clicked on links when I'm in a hurry, I've owned up, and then I've told the whole company, I've just clicked on a link, I'm feeling really embarrassed about it. So that's really important, I think.
And one thing, so we had a nice visitor. So one thing I was going to comment on we mentioned snake oil, right? I think the other thing that comes out here is what actually works, right? What products work? Is it really AI? Do you get the support you need? A lot of that stuff comes out by interacting with each other, and if we leverage trusted entities to support you, you get some of that. You get some of that as well. Marco, lots of stuff to consider.
I'm not going to buy a new phone.
You're not going to. Well, the funny thing is,
I'm happy with the one I have.
So I made a decision. Was it a year and a half ago? I always get the maximum drive space on my phone. Except a year and a half ago, I decided, I'll just do everything in the cloud. And now I'm struggling to keep free space even for stuff that we've been recording. So I'm going to have to make another business decision and sadly make a change on my phone, I think. But that's... Because
you cannot predict the future.
I can't predict the future.
That you could record it in 4K, let's say.
Right.
So that's
exactly.
How far can you look into the future? And if you're driven by fear and by a good, I'm doing air quote for people, of course, not watching this, salesperson, then you're probably going to spend the money.
Yeah, but also, hopefully, you'll be driven by the possibility of doing more work.
Yeah.
So when people start saying, like when the government says you've got to have cyber essentials, for example, you get cyber essentials for one contract, suddenly you're probably ahead of some of your competitors in going for the other contracts. So it can be a positive aspect too.
Yeah, we've heard that. We're actually starting to see some progress there, where it's security posture is a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's great. And so when you get Cyber Essentials, you get insurance if you're a small or micro, and that has now also started to be an advantage because some companies, particularly in financial services, can't get cyber insurance anymore, not for anything affordable. If you get Cyber Essentials and you're small or micro, you get it for free. Yeah. So, suddenly these other things it becomes a business benefit rather than just a cost.
Yeah.
And with that, one other thing is that I think that CISOs especially need to be far more dynamic. And when I talked about enabling the business, I'm currently talking with my company about how to make security an actual saleable product. And it's a whole new take on the dynamic. And if suddenly that's a new revenue stream, that's a big thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And so therefore, my challenge to any CISO out there or any person wanting to be at this level is to how to think outside the box and how to create something different and new. We're supposed to be leaders.
Yep.
We lead.
Yep. Absolutely. You just unlocked a bunch of thoughts, but I'm gonna wrap it here. I could keep going for another hour on this. Maybe we'll have you back and do some more chats.
Happily.
Thank you both very much, and best of luck with the session today. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode, and stay tuned for more coming to you from Infosecurity Europe in London. Thanks everybody.
Coro, the leading cybersecurity platform purpose-built for small and medium-sized enterprises, protects against malware, ransomware, phishing, data leakage, network threats, insider threats, and email threats across devices, users, networks, and cloud applications. Learn more at coro.net. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sean and Marco's on-location event coverage conversations. Please take a moment to give the show a good rating and leave a comment. Remember to share this podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues. Come back for more conversations and follow Sean Martin and Marco Ciappelli as they continue their journey toward redefining cybersecurity and society.